Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this session. In case you didn't know, we're in integrating data visualization tools into the curriculums in order to engage students in telling stories using data. We have here Jefferson Barnes and Jaciel Minna to present. Professors Reginald Dorsley and Damaris Lowesley may be joining us in a little bit.
Okay, so good morning. Welcome to the Integrating Data Visualization Tools into the curriculum in order to engage students in telling stories using data. And that's a long title for a very short concept. And by short concept, I mean it's a simple concept. I approached Professor Dorsley. By the way, I'm from the IT division at Hostos. And I approached Professor Dorsley because we had been talking. We'd met for some time. And we talked about doing joint projects. He's in the math department, and his concern was that a lot of his students really need to know how to use math in the modern world to be effective and to be a part of the new economy. So we've been brainstorming these ideas for a while, and I told him about the visualization tools, data visualization tools that are available on the market, and how that can be used to teach students how to do data analysis. And we talked about how important that was. So we came up with he has students, Jaziel, I'm sorry, this is Ms. Jaziel Mina. He has students who are part of a CRSP program. And this is a program that actually teaches students how to do original research. So they'll choose a project, they'll do original research, and they'll basically come up with the conclusions and produce that data. And what we basically did was to take her project, or actually, let me step back a little bit. We had intended to take her project and show her how to visualize it and present that. But we had a more, a longer term project that had a lot more data. And that was from a study that was done by Professor Damaris Lang. And she's also a teacher within our liberal arts and sciences program. So she volunteered her data to Jaziel, so Jaziel could visualize that. And so that's the start of this project. Now I'm going to walk you through how we create a digerati, because at the end of the day, that's our intent. Our intent is to give our students the skills to be a digital native and to have those new economy skills that will allow them to work at companies such as Amazon. Amazon is all about data. They take your data and they use that to figure out what you're all about and what you're going to buy. There are other companies that you know about that will collect your data and do that. So having those skills are very important. So I'm just going to kind of walk through what the process was. And, have I been talking the whole time around? Okay, I guess I've been going through the presentation slides and I didn't even know it. Thank you, Jaziel. So we're at this point. How do you train a digerati? So one of the things we needed to do is to teach our students how to use the tools to graphically represent the data. Why is it important to graphically represent the data? Well, what they found through studies is that people are especially in this new economy and these times, people are very visually oriented. So when you have to present complex numerical information to them, it's a lot easier if you can represent it graphically. It's also important that it be interactive, okay? It isn't just good to show them a graph or a picture, but it's good to show them that if they can then ask questions and using the graphs or the graphics as a tool to drill down or disaggregate, if you will, and answer questions. So for instance, they'll look at the data and they might say, well, that's very interesting data, but what is it really trying to tell me? And by having a tool that allows them to interactively ask those questions and answer them, that's what is important about using those tools to allow you to tell a story. So telling a story is a matter of asking questions, but it's also a matter of giving the answers. And this is Professor Dorsley.
Hey.
So I will step aside, and we're up to how to train your digerati.
Oh, okay. I'm really sorry, for being late. Again, data. I didn't check the appropriate data, the map and stuff like that. Then that's why I'm late. So, yes, a good reason, huh? And as you know, as you all know, we're generating a lot of data, right? How many of you know the amount of data that we generate every day? A lot. I'll give you a number. Okay, we generating 2.5 quintillion terabyte of information every day. And by the year 2020, we will generate 1.7 megabyte every second, which is going to be about 10 sextillion to the power 22 terabytes every single day. So that means it is very important for us to understand how to manipulate data, how to process data so we can get the most out of it. You agree with me?
I agree.
So now let me tell you, among this data we're generating, you have a cell phone? You have a cell phone? Anytime you press on your cell phone, you're generating data about yourself, you know how you think, you know what you like, you know how you feel. You're generating data, and then somebody in the background, you know, registering, recording whatever you're doing, right? So we're generating 90% of the 2.5 quintillion data generating every day. So it is important for us to be data savvy, you know? So my student and another professor who's not here, we were doing research. We were trying to see, to understand the impact of factors such as time, age, education, major on student performance. We're generating in total about 2,000 data points. And then we were using statistics, you know, to try to understand pattern and stuff like that. Then we met this gentleman, Mr. Barnes from the IT. He was telling us about something that I didn't know. And then we invite Josiah. She said, oh, yes, I'm on board. And then that's why today she's here. She's going to share her experience with you. Are you ready, Josiah?
Of course.
You have
Of course
it?
I am, yeah.
Great.
Good
This is
morning.
Josiah. By the way, while she's here, she's part of a program called CUNY Research Scholar Program. How many of you know? I know why, because you're not from community colleges, but this is a grant for only community college to get students involved in some kind of basic scientific research. With you, Josiah.
Hello, my name is Josiah and I'm also community college. My major is liberal arts and science. So I am so excited today because I'm going to share you a story about this wonderful tool. The first time that I heard about this tool was in a research meeting that we have each Friday. The professor Vanes was presenting the tool, and honestly, I got very inspired. And in the same meeting, at the same time, I downloaded the app and I started playing around. After weeks, I met with Professor Dorsey, and I was doing research with Professor Alain, and they presented the tool again. And I said, of course, I want to visualize my research of Dr. Len with the tool. So we started playing around again with Professor Dorsey trained me about the tool. But we have to follow many steps in order to learn how to use the tool. So as students, we have to import the original research data, or like for example me, where I have the original research data, but if you don't have their data, you can retrieve from open data sources into the BI tool like Microsoft Power BI Service Portal. Second, we use the tool to create a visualization about our research. Third, we use the visualization to tell a story or a narrative about the findings that we have. And the fourth one is that we as a student, we get very engaged in the data analysis, and we are exposed to a field of mathematics that, as we all know, is in high demand nowadays. But how we as a student can visualize this data? We have 4 steps. We organize the research with visualization in mind, and this means that we have to organize the data in tables, one table or more tables. For example, let me give an example. So we have here
Kind of hard to find the mouse.
how can
Goes.
yes,
I
and
was
here.
having the same difficulty.
I have to
This one.
Okay, so here we have the original data that Professor Lam recollect from the students. We have here different questions, and these are the responses. Then we have, in order to import the data, we have to combine all the data in one file. Then, in order to import the data more summarized, we have to summarize more. We have the modeling data here. So we have to summarize the data in order to import it to the BI tool. And then
Chrome.
yes. Okay. When we are at the when we have the modeling data that we are ready to import the data to the BI tool, we have to decide what question the data should answer. For example, if I want that we have the categories females and male. If I want that the data responds at how many students of specific questions in the category of the female, so I have to show that in the data. Then we use the BI tools that will usually represent the data. For example, I have here. This is the app. This is the Power BI Microsoft.
Could I explain what
Yes.
you're looking at?
Mhm.
So there are 2 versions of the Power BI tool. Actually, there are multiple versions, but there are 2 that I'm familiar with. One is the client version that allows you to actually, on your local machine, create these types of reports and save them locally. But there's also a service that is available in the cloud, and it's free to anyone that has an EDU address. So you could actually go to powerbi.com and get access to this portal. And you have a private workspace that nobody else can have access to unless you decide you want to share access. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. So then here, as you can see here, to import the data, we have to click that, get data, then
It would be my org, I think. No, I think you're looking at apps. I'm sorry.
yes. Okay. So I was trying to show the steps. So this is our work.
Could I offer an explanation?
Mm-hmm.
So that get data is supposed to allow you to pick up the local file. Something changed, it didn't happen. So now it's just kind of showing you the finished product.
Yeah.
I apologize.
So this is the finished product that we have. As you can see, when I click, we have here the so what we have here the data, we have the gender, the age, the student location, and the grade location. As we can see here, we have a story here. We have the gender female females and males. You can see the number. You see the number?
It actually pops up there. When you point at it, it pops up.
We see it, don't worry.
You see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Here, big one here.
Yeah. Now I can see it. So here we have the number. The average test score is 3. For the female, we have 3.80 out of 8. We have 8 questions. And here, with no responses, we have 3.83 out of 8. And here, with male. And for the male, we have 0.8011. As you can see, the male has the highest average test score. So it's the same from the different categories. We hear the area. Manhattan has the highest test score. And as you can see here in the level of education, the associate degree has the highest score. It's kind of backwards because as you can see, the highest level of education should have the highest score, but as you can see here, the bachelor's degree has a lower score than the associate degrees. So we have to give note of that.
Let me just add something. Sam, remember, we wanted to know the impact of factors such as age, major, education. Okay, so the good thing, I didn't know about this tool, until I met Mr. Barnes, and then when she did that, I said, wow. You see, the good thing is you're able to see many aspects of the data at once. That's the good thing about it. You see. So now, can you imagine you have maybe 5,000 data points, right? But you wanted to see something quickly so you can say something, right? So with that, you're able to see everything at once. That's the beauty of it. I found it fascinating. Go ahead.
So you are able to see different point of view of the same data. So you're able to do a lot of questions of the same, and you got a bigger visualization. You know what I mean? I'm so like surprised because I didn't know about this tool, and when I learned how to use it, I was totally surprised because nowadays we live in a system that learn how to manipulate data is very important with us. You know how many times in a day I receive emails from stores that I don't even know, and that's why, because every day we are collecting data while we are using our phones and our computers. So I hope that in the future I can keep using that tool in my career, and I hope you like it. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to show the full scope of what you could do with this tool.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I could give you some examples. Okay. Thank you so much, Jessica. These are one of the models that were created for this project. We also created one that was more graphically oriented. Do you want to go through this one? Or you want me to do it?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's not the right one. I'm sorry.
The New York.
Apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't shown the open source data yet. I'll do that part. Jesse is going to show the graphical representation of Dr. Lang's data. I think it's the consolidated one, right? This is the graphical visualization of Dr. Lang's data. Is this the one? Yes. Okay.
So here, as you can see, we can have the data through graphics, so you can see better the information. And what do you want to ask about the data? For example, we have here this graph. We have by gender. We have female, male, and the person that didn't respond about their gender. Here we have by major. Here we have by level of education, and here we have by the average of score by time. So we have different categories of the same data.
Can we filter? Would we be able to ask a specific question? For instance, how did they do with the class where they were not told about the fact that there would be a quiz? You know which one that was?
Now, let me give a little
Context?
information about the research.
Mm-hmm.
The research was we wanted to study the impact of these factors. For instance, we gave the student, we had 6 groups. First, we take a group, we give them a passage to read. Then after that, we test them. There's another group, we didn't tell them anything, we give them the test. That's reading and reading tell and reading don't tell.
Yes.
There's a third group, they listen to the same passage, right? And then after that, they took the test. Another group, a fourth group, so we invite them, we just give them a survey, and then we give them the test. And the last 2 groups, what we did, we just invite them, okay? We said, okay, today we're gonna give you a survey, but the survey, there's a test in it. But we didn't give them the passage, right? And then the last group, what we did, we said, okay, there's a survey. We just give them the survey, and then they have to read and answer the question. So these are the data that we collected, you know. So it's about 1,200, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot. So with the Power BI, we're able to see all these aspects. For instance, let me ask you a question, Josiah. You ready to answer that one? Let's say, it's not difficult. Let's say if I want to know the student who, for the reading tell category, you see, okay?
It is right here.
Yes, so I may want to know something about them. What can you say about them using your tool?
So I click here, reading tell. So I get the data from this category.
It's not click.
Oh,
Yeah.
let me see. This is the data. So what your question about?
Yeah, so what can you tell me, for instance, if we just want to talk about gender, right? Gender, the average score, right? For female is what? 475.
Yes.
Overall.
Overall.
Yes.
So this is the average.
Okay, for this specific, category, reading tell. And then you can go also and look at the major. So here, yes, click on it. So you see the major here. This student, the major was art. And yes, so the average score was what? Sorry, don't move. 427, right? So on and so forth. So, I mean, let's say, for instance, education. So, education, when you go down,
Right here.
yes, education, for instance, we have the bachelor, right? So, they score 5.08 out of 8. All right?
Oh, out of it, I was going to ask you what the scale was.
No, scale is 1 to 8.
All right.
One to
Yeah.
three.
So I wanted you to understand that it's not just tables, that it's also graphics, and these are called visualizations. And if we have time, I could actually show you. I'll pull the file in, and I'll just show you how you can select a particular visualization for a particular field or data. I think that's pretty much the scope of our presentation. I did want to speak a little bit about using open source data. How many of you are familiar with open source data? Okay, so if you go to Open Data NY, there's a lot of information from research projects that are collected by government agencies. And one of the things you can do is have direct access to that data. I did pull in, this is not part of Jaciel's project. This is something that I did. I pulled in campaign contributions. So I went to OpenNY data, and I imported a file on the last political campaign for mayor. And I pulled in a file, a campaign contributions file, and I used that to create a visualization. Because I thought it was really interesting. There's this one point I want to make about this.
Yes.
Because I had no idea, and I don't know if everybody had this. Are we done? All right, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's our presentation.